Hey everyone, I'm Summer, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about building businesses, aligned businesses that help shape our lives and businesses. And this is a part of my Teach Me Something playlist where I have conversations with really interesting people who challenge the way we think, who help us understand ourselves better, who help us work better and grow on a deeper level. And today's conversation is about something that every solopreneur experiences every now and then: blocks, the invisible blocks that slow us down, that keep us stuck, and make success look like really hard. Most importantly, how to actually identify these blocks and what actually is happening inside us when when we face those blocks. My guest today is Russel Nohelty. He is a USA Today best-selling author, entrepreneur, speaker, and creator of the Happy Compass framework. Russell has written more than 75 books, spoken on so many stages around the world, and spent over 20 years building creative businesses across multiple industries. And through his work and his Hapitalist podcast, he helps entrepreneurs optimize for joy while building meaningful, profitable lives and businesses. At the core of all his work, he is helping people identify the hidden blocks that shape their decisions, their habits, and their ability to move forward. Russell, let's get started with something that interested me a lot: the Happy Compass. How does Happy Compass help people identify the things that are blocking them in their business and life? First of all, what is this compass?
Sure. I have a book called Frictionless Growth, and the thing that we do in that book is define what is called your path of least friction. So we, but we say thing when we say things like, "Why is this so hard?" I mean, we've all said that, right? Like, "Why is this so?
Mhm.
Why can't I?"
Mm,
What we often translate that to is, "Why can't this be easy?" Or what other people translate it to. But if we wanted easy, we wouldn't run a business.
yeah.
So we know that this is going to be hard. What we are really asking is, why is there so much friction when I'm trying to do something I love? And
Mm,
so what the path of least friction does is remove the friction without removing the hardness. Like pushing a boulder is hard.
mhm, mm,
So there's four parts of that. There's how we grow, there's how we operate, there's how we level up, and then the fourth thing is how we're blocked. And
mm,
blocks are the hardest one because we are very bad at identifying them in ourselves.
mm,
And it's very hard to identify what kind of block we're having. And so when I consult
mm,
with people, generally what they do is they're like, I don't know why this is so hard. I'm doing these things. And I'm like, well, it's because you have this kind of block and you're applying this kind of solution. So you'll never be able to fix this block with this solution. So the happy compass is a way to define the block that you have so that you can apply the right fix to it.
mm. And most people just keep saying, like, let's push harder. Like for me, when I experience a block, I don't call it block. Now that I'm clearly thinking about myself, I think this is the way to go. But my thing is, I would feel like, what is wrong with me? Have you heard
Hmm.
people say that?
Absolutely. Like they define their failure. They make failure a part of their personality instead
Yeah.
of a feeling or a state. So there's three ways that you can, when you like, I feel failure much more than I feel success,
Hmm.
but I don't let that failure persist into a state that brings me down, and I don't let that state become part of my personality. It's just like I am a person who fails because I fail. And just
Hmm.
like everyone else, but
Hmm.
I also succeed most of the time, and so do you. How I can say it's like you're sitting right here right now,
Hmm.
so like
Hmm.
you've got to this moment, and like that means most all the time you are succeeding at the thing you're doing. But
Hmm.
when we have that one failure or two failures a day, we're saying it's because I'm bad. But it's not
Hmm.
because you're bad, it's
Hmm.
because you have a block. You wouldn't walk up to a brick wall and say, "Oh, I can't push down this brick wall. I must be a failure." Like that would be a
Oh,
ridiculous thing to say.
it is. Yes. What I find interesting is that most people think blocks are mindset or
Hmm.
they're not motivation. They need to push harder. And that there's lots of language around it that people use, like you said. have
Mhm.
failure in their mind and make it a part of their personality. But from your perspective, what do people commonly misunderstand about blocks?
Okay, so this is the easiest way to so that there's six different types of blocks that you can have. And I've
Hmm.
studied now dozens of industries and they all boil down to some version of these six. We call it be
Wow.
happy. The reason we call it the happy compass is because the B and the E are in all of the others. So the
Hmm.
B is belief, it's mindset,
Hmm.
usually coming down to you saying you talking your existence and you negging yourself all of the time. I can't do this. I won't do this. And you
Hmm.
even if you say negative things about other people, it still creates your reality because our minds don't know that there's anyone else that's not us.
Hmm.
This two is embodiment. That's body work. So that is usually in the fact that we're tripping our sympathetic nervous system all of the time, which is putting us in fight or flight,
Hmm.
basically all the time. So there's things those two are kind of supersede all of the others, and that's why everyone says mindset blocks because
Hmm.
like oh yes, you have a mindset block, but really you have this other kind of block too. So the four main ones that we deal with in your business are project
Hmm.
blocks. That is anything that is in your project. So I'm going to
Hmm.
take a book. Let's say your book has a bad cover, or it's just like it's written poorly, or it's badly formatted, or like the topic isn't right, or like anything that is contained into the book. What I mean by that is if you fix the book, the rest of the stuff works. That's what I mean by it. And we can have
Hmm.
multiple blocks, but we have to clear the biggest one
Hmm.
to even see the other ones. So the question isn't like, oh, I have all of these blocks. Great. We need to unblock the biggest one first so that we
Hmm.
can get the water flowing and see where the next block is. You can't pick the smallest block because you're not actually like, in order to actually know if the block is clearing, you have to let something run through it. You have to let like the nodes connect so that you can be
Hmm.
like, oh, that is now working now. So there are project blocks. Then there are audience blocks. That's the A. Audience
Hmm.
blocks are size of community, resonance of community. Maybe you build the wrong community. Maybe you like aren't, maybe you haven't talked about your project enough or the right way to get your community activated. But
Hmm.
what that means is if you fix the audience, the rest of it will flow. And I know I keep coming back to that point, but it's really important because everyone has different multiple of these blocks on a project and different ones depending on the project you're working with. So,
Hmm.
like most people think they have an income block because they're not making the money that they want.
Hmm.
But if you have like a 2 or 3% conversion rate, if you if like your automation sequence generally converts, if people buy from you when they find you, you don't have an income problem. You probably have an audience problem. And if
Hmm.
in an audience, and that means you need to increase usually the size of your audience. And in order to do that, you have to reduce friction and be more accessible. Now, why is that important? If you think you have an income block, the way to fix an income block is to make your prices higher and be less accessible. And so, literally, if you are trying to fix
Hmm.
an audience block with income solutions, you will make the product worse because you will be more exclusive, your prices will be higher, and people will not, it'll be even harder to people to find you. Does that make sense?
It does. It's taking me into a direction where I think I have to go deeper.
Yeah. Okay. So then there's two more. The one that almost everyone faces first is a prioritization block because they're
Yes.
overwhelmed.
Yes.
Almost everyone is overwhelmed.
Hmm.
And so this is about prioritization. At the
Hmm.
end of the day, your goal is to pick one big priority a quarter and work towards it. Nobody
Hmm.
can actually, almost nobody that I work with can actually do that at first. They need to reduce their overwhelm. So we call that being under leverage. So everyone's got a leverage point, and the overwhelm is the amount of stuff that you do above what you can actually handle. So first step of prioritization block is sunsetting all the things until you are under leverage. And people say, I can't do that. And I say, well,
I
you
would say
can't
that
not do
too.
it. And I would say you
Hmm.
can't not do it because you can't move forward while your brain is overclocked. So
Hmm.
one of the biggest things that is going to prevents people from seeing opportunities is that our minds are singular focused on a screen. And that is great when we're in fight or flight mode because it helps us get over one problem. But
Mm,
actually, when you step back and you can actually see more things, when you're less stressed, you can see all the things in your peripheral over here and you see more opportunities. So you actually, like physiologically, when you are less stressed and overwhelmed, can see the field better and see
mm,
all of the stuff better.
mm,
So what I would say is, even as a parent, after 18 or so years, your responsibility as a parent drastically diminishes.
yeah.
If you have a job over 40 years,
Mm,
after 40 or so years, your job responsibilities drastically diminish and you retire.
mm,
So the I can't do that goes back to that kneecapping. I would
mm,
say, okay, we're gonna create a schedule. You're going to put the stuff on this schedule that you literally cannot move. And then
okay.
you're like, okay, I need this hours to this, Y hours to this, Z hours to this. And you end up seeing, like, first of all, you're going to go above 40 hours. And then I would say you can't do anything. Like, you literally can't sunset any of these things. There's
Mm,
no other way that someone else can do it. Or
mm,
you can either offload it, you will say yes. And then we do what's called an Eisenhower matrix. And I would say, where's your zone of genius? Where are the
mm,
things you don't need? And you would
mm,
probably say 80% of the stuff is in that lower right quadrant of things that you don't need. And I would
mm,
say, okay, the biggest one for most people is social media. It's like, do you actually get a return on social media? And like, no, but I have to be there. I'm like, would you go to a bank? Would you keep putting money into a savings account that gave you zero or negative return over time? You would not. You would, but
mm,
we have all of these things that we're told
mm,
actually move the needle. But
mm,
we have to find our highest, we call it return on energy spend or ROE activities. That's where the few activities that I can spend 1 unit of energy and
mm,
get 2 or 10 back. And when things are hard, we tend to focus on them, but we really need to focus on the things that are the easiest because if it was working, it would be
mm,
working. I'm
mm.
not saying abandon it forever, but
Yeah.
we have to get space in your day and in your
Mm,
life so that you can then reinvest that extra time wealth into the other stuff. So I don't generally, what generally happens after people get through that is we finally are like, okay, there's 10 hours a week you actually, or so you actually cannot offload ever. Because
mm,
it's like also like, well, I can offload this on a Tuesday, but not on a Wednesday. Like you can make a schedule that works differently on a day of the week. And then once we have that unmovable, I say you add all of the other things and a sunset date. And then
mm,
you cannot take on anything new
mm.
until these things sunset. And if you really want something to come in, guess what? You're gonna have to sunset stuff a lot faster than you think. And so that's the prioritization part. It's usually the first thing. It's usually the one that gets the most. Once we get past you under overwhelm and you're like, oh, my nervous system isn't supposed to be like triggered all day, every day. Good.
Mm,
So,
mm.
and then the final one are income blocks. Income blocks for most people are the most boring
The most
because they're
boring.
like they're like, oh, I need to like reduce churn by 10%. I need to like do it's a lot of like filling holes and like
Mm,
optimizations, which some people love, but I work with mostly creatives and they just want to like make the thing and not worry about whether the flow. But like if you
mm,
have 50,000 people on your email list and nobody's buying, then like that is an income problem. Oh God, I hope it's an income problem. Because if it's like an audience problem, you just wasted a decade of your life.
yeah.
And I have had to cut my list, considerably down from like 100,000 to like 20,000 and build it back up multiple times. So it's not
Mm,
like you are not bad if that happens. But if you have a big audience, my hope is that if my hope is that you don't monetize it nearly well enough. And so if we just put some income stuff in place, then like it's going to at least start working. And usually it does at that level. But if you are like super overwhelmed, you can't deal with any of the other three things. So it doesn't
mm,
matter if you have a project problem or an audience problem because like you're so overwhelmed, you can't actually take action on any of
mm,
these other things. So
mm,
that is what I mean by like most people have at least a prioritization problem and another problem. And they're throwing all of these things they don't like at it, which give them a very low return on energy spend.
mm,
And that in return, gives them very little ROE and they are moving incrementally and
Mm,
incrementally. So like they keep getting overwhelmed, they keep adding things to their plate and none of those things actually work. And then they
mm,
never step back and say, is this me? Because they think, oh, it's not working, I must be dumb. But it's probably not you, it's probably the platform. And the reason I can say that is because these platforms work very simply. Like
yeah.
you can upload can you, do I really think that you, a human who has made it to this age, can't upload a photo and write a line of text on it? No. So like it's probably not you. It might be that you don't resonate with how the platform builds attention,
Mm,
or it
mm,
might be that the platform just is no longer works the way that it once did. But none of that is about you. But because we think it's about us, that
mm,
mindset part, that body work, we keep adding these things that don't work. Instead of most people can blow up, can like nuke half the stuff that they do because they don't like it anyway. And it's so easy to get when you're like, oh, I just got 30 hours back in my week. And you're like, yeah, you sure did, buddy. And you didn't have to actually, none of these things were actually delivering. So it's
mm.
not like you're missing it.
Yeah, that's a huge distinction. You are taking me through a different lens to look at my own problem. I'm a creative, and I feel like I don't have a prioritization problem, but perhaps I do because I don't like to let go of one creative idea that I started to work on if it doesn't catch enough traction.
Sure.
Sometimes I could have an audience problem, sometimes it could be just the prioritization problem.
Yeah.
But
Well, can I tell you a thing?
yeah, please.
People think that winners don't quit. Like we've all heard that, right? But the
Hmm.
truth is, winners almost only quit. They almost only quit. They continue on with very few things. And
Hmm.
those are the things that work. And they
Hmm.
abandon everything else. They
Hmm.
abandon it pretty quickly. They
Hmm.
don't like they set up a test and say, I'm going to test this platform for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. And if it works,
Hmm.
great. If it doesn't, the sword. They only
Hmm.
so we are taught just hustle all the time and like winners never quit and we stay in. But like what I know about successful people is they almost only quit. They only do like three things because like they want to go to lunch with their friends all the time and do that
Yeah.
and like go
Hmm.
out golfing and like they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to do 98 things. I'll hire
Hmm.
someone to do 98 things, which is
Hmm.
the thing. Once you are getting your traction, then you can hire people to deal with the other things for you who already are very good at this thing and have figured it
Hmm.
out. But you shouldn't be trying to figure out TikTok or Threads or some platform that you
Exactly.
hate. Like you
Yeah.
should be doing the thing you love, and if you can't afford to hire someone there, you need to double down on the things that work, not the things that don't.
Hmm. And what kind of blocks do you keep seeing in other people, like creatives like me? Are there
Oh,
like recurring patterns that people tend to fall into,
well,
or
the
they?
reason why I put the belief in embodiment is most people have some sort of mindset issue, but it's not the one they think. What they actually are doing,
Hmm.
this is the one side, they
Hmm.
are saying no every time they open their mouth. I can't do it. I won't do it. You've done it several times in this conversation. You've just been like,
Hmm.
no, that's not true. I can't leave
Hmm.
that thing. I can't
Hmm.
do those things. Like
Hmm.
literally just that word can't, don't, won't. If you could just reframe that to saying, well, that's not likely. It's probably not going to happen, but it might. Like that might happen. Like I don't know. Like the chance of you getting hit by a whale falling from the sky is very low, but it is not zero. It's not
It's
zero.
not
You might die
zero.
by whale today, and if that is
Mhm.
true, then almost anything. Things that I know aren't possible. You cannot go to Mars. Currently, you can't go to Mars because like there's no
Currently,
way to
yeah.
get to Mars.
Hmm.
But like you could go up in space like because people can just buy their way into space. Like there's ways to get into space.
Hmm.
There's way more ways to run a business.
Hmm.
Like something I know about successful, like especially that like the billionaire class has revealed in the past few years, is they're freaking woefully idiotic. They're dumb. They're just like dumb people that like don't care about anything. They
Hmm.
just like can do one or two real things real well. So
Hmm.
like the number one thing is I can't, I won't, I shouldn't. My friends say that will never work. And instead, if you can say, well, this is not going to work, but like, I'm going to try it anyway. The thing that you do is you say, what ends up happening is you do this thing that is very unlikely
Hmm.
to work. And then when it
Hmm.
doesn't work, you're like, that didn't work. I must be bad. And when people come to me, I'm like, no, there was no expectation for that to work. Like, what did you do? And then they'll be like, I did this, I was like, oh, so you've done nothing. So you made something that was
Mm.
not that was like unlikely to succeed, and then you actually didn't promote it at all. So like, are we surprised? No.
Should
So
we?
like, should you be? I don't know.
No.
Like if you make a product that is very off market and don't do the work to find an audience for it, then like and by work, I mean like the minute that you think you're overwhelmed by how much you talk about something, you're about 5% of the way there. So
Mm.
that's the one pattern. The second is the body work pattern.
Mm.
So there's only one. Oh, I say this a lot, and people generally yell at me afterwards, but I want to say it anyway. Our bodies are not supposed to be tripped. Trip our sympathetic nervous system fight or flight response, except for one reason. One
What's the
reason.
reason?
If we are in immediate physical danger,
Mm.
that is how every animal that's not a human, that is why. And when you trip, so when you trip that, you're basically having a panic attack. You're in anxiety or in boredom. So
Mm.
every time we're supposed to be able to just sit in silence and not think about stuff like a
Mm.
dog does or like
Mm.
a zebra does. And
Mm.
even when like a tiger's coming up, they don't actually like get into the response mode until that tiger is like going to attack them. It's not that they're not in danger. It's not that
Mm.
they are not they are unsafe. It's just that if your body triggers that response, what it does is it narrows your vision so you can escape this one problem. And that makes you think, oh my God, I can never solve this one problem. But the minute you can expand out to here, suddenly you're like, oh, we talked about brick wall. Well,
Mm.
you could get a hammer and knock through that brick wall, or you could just like walk a block that way and
Mm.
take no effort to just walk down and go this like, but you don't see that you could just be like, oh, well, this in the peripheral, I see two paths down this thing that require no effort. So maybe I shouldn't get a sledgehammer when I can just walk like slightly offset and get where I want to go with like that's much less effort, but we go to maximalist effort all of the
Mm.
time because
Mm.
our bodies go anxiety,
Yeah.
problem, like, and we're doing that all day, every day in our screens. Like, we've just
Mm.
been doing this. You've been looking at me for the past 20 or so minutes, and that literally trains your body to just look ahead and focus on this very narrow area. So, we are
Mm.
teaching our bodies to
Mm.
go to like focus down here. And even when you're having a conversation that you might like, you're like, oh, your body's like, oh, I should be I should be panicking about this. I should be like this is like we are like narrow focused in. We must be in fight or flight. So all of these things that we do, like it sounds like hippy dippy or manifesty or something else, but like the happy compass is very simply a way to like diagnose the problem you have
Mm.
and give it the solution that it actually deserves. If your body is tripping your
Mm.
nervous system, then you have to teach it to be safe. That is your number one. Like you may have other problems, but you know what?
Mm. Mm.
Things may be fine.
Mm.
Things might be fine. Things may only be 5% as bad as you think, but your body has been doing this all day, every day for 30, 40 years. And if you don't
Mm.
stop doing this, you can't say, oh, like I'm pretty okay. Things are pretty okay. And so that has to be the first thing that you focus on because you can't fix your prioritization problem if your body is like, I have to do all the things. If I don't do all the things, then I'm not loved, then I'm not like enough. If I'm not needed, then I'm not enough. If I'm not don't achieve enough, then I'm not then like I have no
Mm.
value in the world. If you're not like
Mm.
you can't fight that. You have to like train out the fact that you have to feel that way. Because like you are clearly enough. Like you clearly are like have achieved some like a good amount. Like
Mm.
you clearly should have every right to feel love just for existing. But like
Mm.
that is not what our body tells us. And when our body even and our body often tells us like because of how we've trained our body for decades,
Mm.
we're like, oh, safety is panic. So like if you're in an abusive relationship or a bad work experience or you're always living like in scarcity mindset, then your
Mm.
body's like, oh, this is what normal is. This is what normal is panic. And so whenever you get into a new situation, if it like doesn't cause that normal fear, our body's like, that's not a good one. So like our
Mm.
body's literally training us to the wrong opportunities and the wrong experience because it's trying to keep us safe. And it's like, this is our natural state. My wife asks me all the time, is this normal? And I say, yes, that is normal, but that is not healthy. And so we have to disavow ourselves of the idea that like being in a panic state, fight or flights is the normal reaction most humans have, but it
mm,
is ants don't have that. Like dogs don't have that. Like we're only 8 billion people on a beings on a planet of trillions upon trillions of things. And it's
mm,
very abnormal to get up in our head about something that's happening 3 weeks from now and start
mm,
panicking about it. That is not a normal
100%.
reaction among any animals.
Mm. And what happens if people go through your happy compass and then think that they have this particular block, and then they start treating themselves for the wrong block? So
Yeah,
how can they
well,
begin like recognizing the difference between this is my symptom and this is the root issue?
so you have to do a lot of testing in Hapitalist. So people come to me and they're like, "Oh, you're just going to teach me to be happy. I can be happy." I'm like, "No. The only way to
Mm,
actually be happy is to go through a lot of pain." Because you have to be willing to look at yourself and say, so the whole joy loop is like you start with attunement, you make an assumption, this is what I want. This is what my body's saying, this is what I want. And
mm,
then you look at the opportunities around you and you stop saying no and you're like, okay, this is what I want. Look at all these opportunities to get this thing. The reason we call it attunement is like a radio
mm,
frequency. You're
mm,
sitting here going, I
mm.
don't like it when you're attuned to the wrong thing, you don't get
Right.
like if you want to listen to rap and you're attuned to the country channel, there's nothing you can do to get. But if you just tune the dial correctly, suddenly you're like, wow, I'm actually getting the thing that I want. And
Mm,
so we have to know what we want, and that involves radical acceptance. That means there's three kinds of radical acceptance. There's life, there's other, and there's yourself. And everyone has a problem with one of those three things. And unless you can look at a situation and say, this is what's actually happening, this is how I feel about it, this is how others feel about this situation and react,
mm,
and know, it's very hard to attune properly. So the
mm,
first thing is the radical acceptance.
mm,
That's usually the hardest thing. And like the biggest radical acceptance thing is people don't need you as much as you think they do.
as I think
And
they
they
do,
don't
yeah.
ever think about you. That's
Mm,
okay. That's
mm,
normal. We're not supposed to think about random humans
mm,
like as you go about our day that we haven't seen in 2 years. So, and then you have to stop saying no because if you stop saying if you keep saying no, you're going to miss all the opportunities. And then that's where the path of least friction comes in. Once you know what you want and you identify the opportunity, then you run it through your path of least friction. And
mm,
that's when you can say, oh, this is a bad opportunity. Actually, I don't feel good about this. I'm not there.
mm,
So, like, it's a lot of testing. The reason it's called a loop is because you make assumptions and then you run stuff through it. And I still
mm,
make mistakes all the time. Like, we had a conference at one point that I thought was what I wanted. Like we had courses. I thought like doing a lot more speaking gigs was more important. Like I thought all of these things were like the thing that was going to, and then I ran the loop and I was
mm,
like, I don't know if I have enough data on that. Let me try that again. And then eventually
mm,
we did our conference 2 years, 3 years, or something like that with a mastermind event at one point.
mm,
And we are like, oh no, that wasn't a false signal. That was this thing. So you're going to be in a failure state much more than you will be in a success state. And that is
mm,
because success tends to happen in like this, a big
mm,
jolts.
mm,
One,
mm,
two, like, but failure tends to bleed out a little at a time. Like the way that you're like you have a big subscriber event, you get 2,000 people on your mailing list. Great. But then like for the next 3 weeks,
flat out.
those people they like bleed out, they like start unsubscribing, they realize you're not what they wanted. And so
Mm,
it's like you're constantly met by
mm.
this failure state, but you forget that like a month and a half ago you had 2,000
Went
less
like that.
subscribers. So
Mm,
like that you have 1,800 is actually pretty great.
yeah.
So we see failure more often, which is why I say failure is a feeling. It can
Mm,
become a state, which you
mm,
should not, and then it definitely should not become part of your personality because you are not a
right.
failure. You are a person who failed, and you are going to need to fail a lot to know
Mm,
what you want. We
mm,
have been taught for our entire lives that we want things we don't want. We actually don't want those things, probably. Or we
mm,
definitely don't want all of those things. People that get
mm,
fame all the time are like, oh my God, I wish I did not have this fame. Like they become, and people that get tons of money end up reverting to the mean after like a couple of years. And like their
mm,
happiness doesn't, so like the things that we think we want, we've been tricked into wanting our whole lives. And
Mm,
so we have to unlearn all of that. It is not on you that you have been taught by society for the past every day of your life until this one that you want something, that you've searched for something, even though it
mm,
doesn't feel right. And it's not your body's fault by saying, I know you kind of are attracted to this thing over here, but like remember that feeling in your belly, the bad one that you don't like, that's actually what good. That's good. That's what we're supposed to have. And so
wow.
go towards this area over here. So we have to basically unprogram an entire life's worth of stuff to say, oh, that feeling in my gut, that's not normal. I'm not
Mm,
supposed to feel that way. I'm not
mm,
supposed to feel that way when I'm in this room or when I'm around this group of people or when I'm chasing this thing. What I'm really supposed to feel is like this is actually what happiness is. And it's very hard to tell you about the sympathetic nervous system, especially because people will then say, are you saying my pain isn't real? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm
mm,
not
mm,
saying your pain isn't real. I
mm,
am saying you very likely are unsafe. What I am
mm,
saying is the fact that you're tripping every 2 minutes is preventing you from actually fixing the issue
mm,
because your body is just like unsafe, unsafe, unsafe. And every time you're like expand a little bit to see the possibility, all you can see is the wall in front of you, as opposed to like the pathways out of that thing. And until you hit that thing and you're like, wait, my wife hit this the other day. She like sent an email. We're getting contracting work done. And
mm,
so like the bid came in and she's like, I should send a follow-up bid to see if this guy can come in lower. And she sent it. She's like, I didn't have an anxiety doing that. Is that normal? I was like, actually,
mm,
that is not normal, but that
mm,
is healthy. Like the
mm,
un that so when you if you listen to other people, they're all going around with these like bad little like narwhals in their stomach, and
mm,
everyone's saying, I don't know what you're doing. This is not like you're supposed to feel nauseous all day every day. Like, and you're like, actually, I don't think that you are. And they're like, I don't understand. Now you have to unprocess all of their stuff. And so most
mm,
of my life is just going places and telling people things and then waiting 2 years until they're like, did you know? And I'm like,
mm.
whoever said that is a genius.
Yeah. I think there were a few statements that you made. I'm going to listen to this over and over again because I needed to hear them at this point right now. You are not a failure. You are just somebody who failed, and that is not repetitive. Russell, this conversation really changes the way people think about growth and resistance and success and all that. Sometimes I think the problem is simply in misunderstanding what actually is standing in the way, right?
Yeah,
So, you guys, if this resonated with you, go connect with Russell, explore his Happy Compass framework, his books. He's written a lot of them, and his links are right below. Russell, what's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
just hapitalist.com, or I do have a LinkedIn.
There you go. All the links that you need for Russell are down in the description below. Take a look, connect with Russell, watch what he does. And if you're enjoying these Teach Me Something conversations, make sure you like and subscribe and share this episode with somebody who needs to hear this right now. Anybody that's like feeling stuck and needs a new perspective on why they're finding a block in their lives or business. I'll see you in the next one. Russell, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.